you've been around whiskey for the last couple of years, you've seen a lot of finished products come out. And this might be a little confusing as what these finished products are, but by the end of this video, you're gonna understand that and you're gonna feel more comfortable about it. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Whiskey and Wine, where we try to make the world of whiskey and wine more approachable for more people. My name's Sam, and today we're talking about finished whiskey, or finishing the whiskey. Now, before anyone goes and makes the joke, yes, you want to have a whiskey that you can finish. You always want to finish a whiskey. I always finish my whiskey. Yeah, cool. We love that joke. Moving on. What does it actually mean to finish a whiskey? For the sake of this video, we're only going to be talking really about bourbon, because that's where this really shines true at. During the maturation process, or when you fill that barrel initially, that whiskey is going to age in that new charred oak barrel. Once you take it out and you put it into any different type of barrel, either a second use charred oak barrel or a tequila barrel, rum barrel, honey barrel, whatever it is, that is technically no longer just bourbon. It is now a finished bourbon. Even if I take a bourbon barrel, dump it into something else, and then I fill it up with rye whiskey, and then I dump that bourbon back into that barrel once I get rid of that rye, that is still technically a second use, well, third use barrel, and that is no longer bourbon. So all it really means is I took that barrel that had the bourbon and I dumped it into a different barrel that is not a first use new charred oak. Cool? Still with me? Awesome. Let's keep moving. There are going to be a plethora amount of finishes that you can do. Basically, if you can take something and you can put it in a barrel, you can make a finish out of it. And that is awesome, because there are so many different notes that you can get out of a bourbon or out of a whiskey, so you can really highlight any of these notes by putting basically a finished product or finished barrel and putting that in there. You can highlight so many different things. So we're going to split this up into a couple different ways. We're going to talk about wine finishes, we're going to talk about spirit finishes, and then we're going to talk about other finishes. We'll start with the wine because this is probably going to be the most common that you're typically going to see. Now, in the world of Scotch, real quick, they almost always stick their whiskey in a ex-sherry, ex-port, or ex-red wine, or ex-bourbon barrel. So they're going to have some of these notes from some of these sweeter wines out there, but not going to really be as punchy, if you will, when you do it with something like a bourbon. Now, yes, there are some sherry bombs out there that are just going to knock your socks off with a ton of that sherry flavor. But for the most part, it's going to be much more mellow and it's going to be a lot more approachable. So starting with our wines, and speaking of sherry, there are two different types of wines that you're typically going to see finishes for. You're going to see dessert wines and you're going to see what's considered still wines. Still wines are going to be things like Cabernet Sauvignon or Pinot Noir or even Sauvignon Blanc. These specifically, you see relatively often when you're looking at finished bourbons in a still red wine. Some of these are going to be a little bit fruitier, some are going to be a little bit earthier, some are going to be a little bit lighter. It all depends on what is the whiskey that I'm putting into this barrel and what flavors do I want to get out of it. Now, these are going to be a little bit more subtle than your dessert wines. So if you have these dessert wines, you're looking at things like Vino de Naranja, which is what goes into Valencia from Penelope. Or you're looking at things like Madeira, like Tokai, like port, like sherry, like ice wine. All of these sweeter styles of wine. Now, if you look at the lighter styles of this, so again, your Tokai, your ice wine, your Sauternes, or even a white sherry, something like that, you're going to get these very light notes, very elegant notes. But if you do something like a port or a regular sherry, some of these deeper, more just robust styles, you're going to get almost like these nutty, these coffee, toffee, chocolate notes are going to come through, and that can be super fun to play with. Obviously, these are still wines, so you are going to get some of these grape notes that are going to come through and these fruit notes. But that's really it when it comes to your wines. You have your stills and you have your desserts. Let's jump over to all of our spirits. So recently we've seen the whole phase of finishing in tequila barrels. Now tequila is obviously an agave spirit, so you're going to get all these agave notes that are going to come out of that. It's kind of interesting and can be a little off-putting for some people, but I'm honestly a fan of it. I appreciate them. But you're also going to see things like rum finish. You're going to see all of these brandy finishes, and it can be any type of brandy, whether it's apple brandy, cherry brandy, whatever. You're going to see all of these other type of finishes out there, and you're going to get a lot of those flavors most likely. For example, this guy, Fall Finishing Series coming from Watershed, this is their apple brandy. The apple brandy finish has a ton of this apple note on it, and it's kind of interesting. I'm not always the hugest fan of apple brandy, so this one's a little weird for me, but it is there. You do get this really, really big impact of apple brandy in this whiskey. Again, you also have rum finishes that you're gonna see. So with Rio from Penelope as well, this was another one that was a rum finish and had a lot of this rum sweetness that came through. So you can do a lot of things with any type of spirit and finishing in it. One of my all-time favorite whiskeys actually is finished in a Islay whiskey barrel, which is weird. So it has this really big smoky flavor, but also is still a bourbon or bourbon finished in an Islay Scotch barrel. It's fantastic. It's really weird. From Chattanooga, really cool. Check it out. The last category we're going to talk about is going to be just the other category. This is going to be things like honey, maple syrup, Tabasco. Yes, there was a company that used Tabasco barrels and put the whiskey back in there. It's just weird. But you can do this where you take a barrel and you stick something else in it and then you stick your whiskey in there. You let it age for a little bit, pull it back out, there you go. So if you can really think about any type of liquid or anything that you can stick into a barrel, you can actually have a whiskey finished in that type of barrel. There's some things that I would argue should not be done, like the Tabasco, but you can really do anything. So there's a lot of room to play here. When it comes down to it, finishing a whiskey is an absolute art, and it is such an important thing to think about when you're making a whiskey. If I'm making a whiskey and I know I want to finish it, say, in an apple brandy barrel, I probably don't want to have that whiskey come off too spicy. Or maybe I do, and I want it to taste like an apple pie. Or maybe I want it to taste more rounded and just taste like a nice fresh apple or something like that. You have to keep these things in mind. So when you do see these products, know that they did put a good amount of effort into it. And for the most part, they aren't just doing this to try to cover it up. Hey, I appreciate you guys making it to the end of this video. If you did make it to the end, drop down in the comments what is your favorite finish and why. But I will see you guys next time. Cheers.